Okay, so today and I believe most, not all of the rest of the Thursdays in this class, we are going to have students give short presentations of their updates on their mapping project. And this hopefully will be a great time for the students to get feedback. I'd like to ask that students feel comfortable giving each other feedback. Perhaps they have a bit of time to give feedback before any of the instructors give much feedback. And then so you planned for about 5 people for each day. So if a discussion for students mapping lasts more than about 12 minutes, then I'll probably push us on to the next person to make sure that we get to see everyone's projects. Any questions on that outline?
That sounds good, Chelsea. I'd just like to emphasize that this should be kind of a discussion, you know. We're not sitting around a classroom together, but we're all getting to know each other on this platform. So, you know, feel free to just talk and discuss these things, you know. We'd like to get feedback from everybody on everybody's project, you know, and just help each other out by discussion.
Exactly. Great. So would someone like to start, or I can call on someone?
I could go if you want.
Great.
I guess I don't have too much to share because I'm still getting my stuff geo-referenced, but in the meantime, I've been looking at the images, and I've been, I've actually printed them out and like tried to see them in stereo, which is kind of hard, starting to get headaches from crossing my eyes, but it'd be nice to have a stereoscope. But there's some pretty...
At UNR?
Do we
You don't have a stereoscope at home though, right?
Yeah, I'm at home.
We have portable ones at the department. If you ever are at the department, you could ask in the department office. They have those little fold-out ones.
Yeah, the little small ones.
You might be able to check one out. So.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll do that because. Oh, sorry. But yeah, it's been interesting to see. The images that I'm working with are kind of they're old, but there's some weird like artifacts on the images. I was wondering if anyone knew what they are. Would I be able to share my screen?
Yes, please.
Sure.
All right, let's see.
How old are the images?
They're from 1960.
Do you want to say what earthquake you are working on?
I'm working on the Parkfield earthquake.
1960.
Yeah, from 66. That's right. Okay, so here we go. Here's the images, and then this is kind of what I'm seeing. It's like they have, like, I don't know, bleached parts of the images, like, and I don't know. Anyone I have an idea?
Different images being like superimposed on each other?
No, you guys, I think that's farming. I think that that's like plowed land and the lines are fence boundaries.
Like it's almost around every single one of these.
Yeah, because they're farming the tops of the hills because the drainages are too steep, and they're planting, I think, like alfalfa for cows.
Okay, and it seems like it follows some of these like image boundaries too in some places.
Yeah, I really think it's fence lines. It might be superimposed images, but I see this a lot just south of there because I work in Chelam, and they just like plow the tops of all the hills. And then I think because it's in black and white, it just looks like it's bleached, but really that's like just plain dirt, and then the darker areas are green.
Yeah, I guess I do see some lines in there. That might be like plow.
Yeah, tractor. Yeah, that's okay. What I think it is.
And it goes across.
Yeah, they don't want to drive. they don't want to drive their tractors down the steep canyons. They don't want the cows to go down the steep canyons either. So there may be some additional fence lines around the valleys.
Okay.
Where is this?
It's in California.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's, I guess, looking at it in a new light. And then over here, well, wait, where was it? Yeah, I guess same thing. It just, I don't know, it looked like it was just kind of, the image looks good, and then you get to this stuff and it's like, I don't know, hard to see them.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. It's not all of them, just a few of them. Another thing that I've been doing, I tried to georeference these myself because they have actual, sorry if you can hear the kids in the background, but
That's okay.
I tried to georeference them myself, and they give coordinates for the corners, but they're rounded corners, and so it didn't really work very well. They were always kind of off by a little bit. But in printing these out and in trying to georeference them, I think, so here is the actual image from, oh, not that one. Let's see. Oh. Sorry, that the sharing screen thing's getting in the way. So here are the images in Earth Explorer, and it looks like they're georeferenced, and they put them in, you know, side by side in view like this. But when I actually, you know, put them together, they're not actually side by side. So I might end up having to send more of these images in afterwards.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think we'll do the georeferencing kind of an image or two at a time, so everyone has something to work on. So send them as they come.
Cool. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm been looking at them, trying to find some features a little bit, but I guess I was a little distracted by that plowing the tops of the hills, which, so.
So I believe in Global Map or maybe ARC, once we get the images georeferenced, you can basically superimpose them so that you get them to be in blue and red. So if you have blue and red glasses, you would essentially see it in 3D.
Oh, really?
So that might be, getting a stereoscope is difficult. So might be a different option. I've tried it a little bit, and with some of the older data sets, it's a little bit harder because they don't georeference perfectly. But you might want to give it a try.
Okay. Did you say you can put it in blue and red and use the blue and red glasses to see it in 3D?
Yes, it works better with, well, I imagine it works better with newer imagery, but it's, if you have glasses and they're already georeferenced, it probably wouldn't take you that long to try.
Like a 1990s 3D movie?
Yes.
That's just, that sounds so weird to me.
Same thing, same glasses.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Which program
glasses,
did you say
you know, that they give out at the theater?
Does that help?
It works.
Wow.
I actually did a bunch of my thesis mapping that way.
No.
Rich Kaler might remember, yeah.
That sounds so made up. That's
it's so, yeah. No, it's a Steve Wisnowski trick. That's where I learned it. It's way cool.
Yeah.
I have to do it.
Yeah. I'll have to ask you about that more later.
Yeah. I think, I tried it. It was either Global Mapper or ARC.
Okay.
QGIS may have it, but I haven't tried it there. Or maybe Alex has some ideas.
Yeah, so the way I did it was in Photoshop. So you change the colors in Photoshop. I don't know if ARC has a way to do it, but change colors in Photoshop and then GeoRef.
That's awesome. I need to try that. That sounds, I have to do it now.
I mean, there's fancy software packages that have these like full glasses, you know, that are basically red and blue, but the paper glasses do essentially the same thing.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh wow. I have to do it. Hey Sean, so have you seen any like? I guess what would you be your strategy for tackling this area for mapping it?
I think what I'm actually going to do is start mapping the drainages first, and kind of do like the sharp and like concave and
So some morpho mapping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you just gonna focus on like the drainages and the hill and the ridges?
Yeah, and looking for offset along those.
Mm.
Does that sound like a good idea? What do you guys think?
Yeah, and see where drainages maybe do weird things, have weird bends and stuff like that that don't look like normal natural stream courses, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and remember, I suggested to a few people the first part of the assignment asks you to do this at least 2 hours of either more of the morpho or geomorphic mapping before you get into interpreting the faults to give you some context of what you're looking at.
Yeah, and I think that's going to help quite a bit, because I have been looking at the images, and it's like, I mean, I'm looking at them this scale because I've just been using printed images, but I think it'll help to focus my eye on the actual structures.
And if it's easier for you to map on the paper with tracing paper, then that's fine also.
Well, those little stereo glasses, they only do like 4x or something, right? So they're not really too zoomed in, are they? Do you know, Richard?
Yeah, that's right. You have to move around on the photo, and you're just kind of looking at a small part of it, you know, and then you move the photos around underneath it, and you have to overlap them and all that.
Yeah, I did a bunch of that in undergrad. Actually took a course on it. But
perfect. So then you're ready. Another thing, this applies to everybody, but when you're studying the photos, just think of the geomorphology a little bit, just in your head, you know, just think of what types of stream valleys, you know, where bedrock is, where alluvium is, you know, not necessarily mapping it all out, but just start thinking about what types of deposits and stuff are in the area, and it'll help start framing, you know, your thinking as you're going through it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Any other suggestions for me, or any thoughts? I know, yeah. It'll be a little easier after I'm working on the computer, I think, and I can actually zoom in on some of this stuff and get a.
So that area to like the northwest, where it looks like all those square blocks, like the like city or farming scape area.
The farming area.
Yeah, that's probably like. Are you gonna do kind of the same geomorph mapping for that too?
Yeah, I figure I'll probably do quite a bit. I don't know if I'm going to do the geomorphic mapping on all of my maps because there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, I don't know how I would do that area. That seems really, really messy.
Yeah. Hard to.
I would suggest at least considering the farms area and maybe doing some geomorphic mapping in these different types of areas so that you are better at making observations throughout the region that you're mapping.
Yeah, I was gonna say that even in the farming areas, like you don't necessarily need to do like full geomorphic maps, but like what Rich said, paying attention to what you expect to see from strike slip offset features, like paying attention to streams, because I know that there's a lot of mapped offset, like small channels, but it's really subtle. So I guess it's like all in the detail.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great, Sean. Should we move to the next person?
I can go, Chelsea.
Great, Lori.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. How do I do this? I just like threw together a quick PowerPoint as of where I was at yesterday. Is this sharing?
Yeah, I think if you click the presentation mode, it'll be bigger.
Okay, I can do that. Is that better?
Yes, great.
Okay, so I was working on, is it Balochistan?
Baluchistan.
Balochistan. Okay, great. So this is in
There's no
Pakistan.
R in the Christian part.
Oh, okay. Sorry, So this is in Pakistan, and so I mean, at first, like I've never worked in Pakistan, and I really didn't know anything about the geology over here, so I didn't look at the base imagery up close, but I did look at it from kind of a worldview just to see like what structures could be impacting this. So here's where we are, and then this mapping, we have 2 small sites. These are the shape files that we were supposed to find data from, and so using that, I downloaded these 2 different clips of things, and so the only somewhat challenging part was trying to merge the data sets because I was trying to make one uniform base map, but the merge feature in QGIS doesn't seem to work. At least I wasn't able to work, so I kind of went down a rabbit hole to figure out if I could do that, but eventually I just ended up clipping them. I made like 2 new shape files and then clipped the data sets, so they're much more manageable.
Did you just get those clips from the Open Topo?
Yeah.
And then you just colorize them for the hillshade?
Yep. So yeah, I just colorized them by elevation. So red is high, blue is low, and then threw them over the hillshade. And so I played around with like all the different like orientations of the hillshade to figure out what would kind of best show the maps. And I found that for this first clip, using a hillshade of 225 degrees worked best. And for this one, a hillshade of 315. So I was going to bring up if it's, given that it's like we're mapping a similar area, if using different hillshades would be beneficial, or if I should try and use the same hillshade, like the same orientation to pick up on similar features. So I don't know if anyone had any insight to this.
Oh, for the hillshade stuff?
Yeah, I mean, given that you're trying to map features across this whole area, like is it okay to use different hillshades in one area versus the other area? Or like, would it be better to try and find a hillshade that works for both of them so you're picking up on like similar features in both of them?
I mean, I would think like different ones would be fine because it looks like kind of the stripe of that the mountain range, like the base of the mountain range is kind of more north on the clip too.
That's what I was thinking, but
yeah, uniformity would be. I don't know. That's a good one.
Hey, Lori, I have a quick question. On your hillshades, have you changed the orientation of light at all?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the degrees that I'm talking about.
There's 2 sets. You have the degree that's stated like the 360, and then you have the one that's upwards of 45.
Oh yeah, I haven't changed the 45 at all.
Yeah, you should mess around with that because it changes it to a little bit more distinct, darker or lighter. And so it also pulls out some features. So that's another thing you might want to try out.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, these are really zoomed out views right now, so they don't look like a lot. I was just trying to give an overview, but I'll play around with that setting as well.
There's a really cool thing you can do in QGIS if you just go into the properties of your layer. You don't have to create a whole new hillshade layer and then keep recreating new ones. You can change the display of the tip to a hillshade, and then there's little dials that you can just kind of rotate around, and you can decide like if you want to make a new layer, you can like fine tune it a little bit quicker that way.
Cool, I'll look for that. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, it's super easy. I mean, like after you get off this, I could show you in like 2 seconds. It's stupid easy. I found it by accident and I was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's basically just kind of like changing the dials instead of creating a whole new layer,
Yeah, because the layers definitely get a little bit messy, but it's nice to toggle through them.
Yeah.
So next,
I think Joe's advice is very good. I'd be careful using only one hillshade.
Yeah.
Because you're really only seeing half the features. So I'd make 2 or more hillshades and be constantly toggling back and forth, and maybe also with these slope maps that you have?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to toggle through the different ones. It's just yeah, no, that's good advice. So I also made slope maps. I found that slope maps have been really helpful in some of the previous assignments, and like you can just tell like right away kind of what that dominant orientation is of a lot of these structures. And then you can also tell pretty clearly like what geomorphic features are kind of overlaying the different structure features, and like getting some of that like superposition almost of what's cutting through what. So this is like another layer that I made that I find to be helpful right now. And then, so I started like just like zooming into some like more specific features and seeing just like what I could pick out immediately. And so this is zoomed in on kind of like the the southwest corner of the first clip. And so here it seems to be like you see some like pretty clear cross-cutting features through the landscape following that dominant trend. And then I was noticing that here there's these beheaded, what I assume are ancient alluvial fans that now have been cut off and they're following a long strike. And then we have one of the more modern channels here. And so this was just trying to figure out like what features are even here and kind of like what relative ages would be in this landscape. So yeah, this is just kind of where I've started. And then I also took a couple profiles across to just see what these elevations looked like. And so this is going, I didn't label this, but so I correlated them with squares, or this has a square to here, circles. And so it's pretty clear that there's like a little ridge being formed here. And then there's also these other ridges that are producing these pretty significant offsets. And then something else too, I didn't mark it, but down in this lower corner, can you see my mouse, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so down in this lower corner, there's this like really interesting offset here, but it doesn't seem to be trending quite the same direction, but you do see this like pretty subdued offset down in this part of the profile. So
did you Photoshop those shapes in, or is there like a tool that you mark it?
Oh no, I just Photoshopped them in PowerPoint just to like show clearly kind of what I'm trying to look at. So it seems like there's quite a lot of, do I have another slide? I do have another slide. So something else I was looking at was just like the rivers, because the rivers show pretty clear if there's anything happening. And so in this part of the profile, I found it interesting that the river channel seems to kind of come together. Like that's not usually the shapes rivers take, and then increases, and then we see these small offsets here. And so this would be like a kind of area that I would zoom in a little bit more and look at the slope map to see what this offset looks like, and also just like does it extend further in any direction in a way that I can tell. So it looks like there's like a little ridge here. It looks like the river does something kind of interesting here and has like a little bend. So that's where I've started to look at. I guess I haven't really started like the geomorphic mapping. It's just more of what features can I pick out and make into an attribute table. So that's where I'm at.
Looks good. Have you looked at any of the optical imagery?
Well, so I looked at I like on Google Earth just like went back to, 2011? This was a 2013 earthquake. So I was trying to find the imagery from before the earthquake. And I looked around it, but then I didn't end up saving it or like sending you to GeoReference. But after you saying today that Ramon is still doing it, I think I'll download some optical imagery, because looking especially at the alluvial fans and some of the coloring would be really helpful for this area.
Yeah, I imagine some of these features that you mapped will have sharp changes in the soil colors.
Yeah, so I'll do that today and send that off.
And is Jackie, or who else is working on this area?
Joe. Yeah.
Have you been working on any of the georeferencing?
I was looking at the Google Earth stuff. I was looking a little bit on that. I haven't sent you guys anything to get georeference yet, though. I've been just shifting through the two, trying to see where I want to like focus on. But I was focusing. I guess like my strategy was to focus more on like the fans and the ages. So it's kind of interesting to see that. With Lorraine, right?
Yeah, you can call me Lori. I just haven't
Lori. Okay. That Lori was like focusing on like a little more of like the features and trying to like going through like I like your system. That makes sense. Yeah. That's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, no, if you look at it on Google Earth, I went to I used the 2010 data set from OpenTopo. It's like a really bright photo. It's super. I think covers the whole area, but or for I'm sorry for Google Maps. I think 2010 and 2007 are the best ones that I found for like full coverage of the area.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know.
Great.
Any other comments for Lori?
So I guess like moving forward with your mapping, right? Like you're gonna pick out the features, and then you're gonna keep moving forward with the mapping. Are you gonna focus on like mapping those like the point break features, like the streams and offsets and things like that, or are you gonna go into like geomorph mapping? Like what's your like general like just kind of process of plan?
So I started mapping, that was this morning before class, I didn't add it, but I tend to map the most active channels first, so the ones that I feel like aren't showing any sort of offset by any sort of tectonic features. And then from there, it's like I have like all of the features that haven't been disturbed, and then from there looking more in rivers that I think are showing some kind of offset or like being disturbed by some kind of fault. And then from there starting to like put faults in. And then looking at things like alluvial fans, and then trying to find what's the youngest alluvial fan, what's the next oldest, do we see any offset of that? And so I kind of go from like the most modern features to older, because I find like the older you get, it's really hard to figure out the relationship between faulting and like depositional features.
Oh, cool.
We'll see if it works.
Yeah. I feel like that's the hardest part with these kinds of maps, is that it's kind of like a bowl of spaghetti. You know, it's like, what do I do first? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, great. Thank you, Lori. Who would like to go next? I can call on someone. Jackie? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Okay. Share screen. Okay. And you're seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so the system I'm working on is El Mayor Cucapa, is that right? Cucapa? Yeah.
Cucapa.
Or EMC, I guess for short, is probably easier. And this is in Mexico. The earthquake ruptured on April 4th, 2010. So obviously all the imagery and data is going to be prior to 2010. And the LiDAR data is from Open Topography. It's a 6 meter resolution, so not as fine as some of the other data sets out there, like 1 meter or better than 6 meter. And also the Google Earth imagery is, as of right now, what I've able to georeference is around 6 meters per pixel. So it's pretty good, but I'll show you some Google Earth images of it, and it could be a little bit better. So I might want to zoom in eventually and get some finer details in there. But this is the overview of the area, and these 2 polygons are where I'm focusing, or where Chelsea and Ramon have identified the focus areas be in this system. So let's go forward. And just to give some context on where this is in Mexico, it's in kind of the Baja California region. I personally don't know a whole lot of this area. I know it's mostly transtensional, so a rift, kind of a rift setting, but also some strike slip movement. So if we get into the data set. So I started off just making a bunch of different layers, so slope maps, hill shades. I made a few different hill shades. I found the hill shade that's at 270 degrees was probably the best, but I was toggling back and forth between the different hill shades. I found that the hill shade that's illuminated from the west picked out the most features. But yeah, I generated a slope hill shade, and then I also, the next slide, I think it was Joe a couple weeks ago showed us this 3D map that you can generate in QGIS, and I really like that because I find that before I map, I like to really get a lay of the land first. So I like to fly around and just see what the topography is doing and what it looks like from multiple angles. So not just slope and hill shade, but also maybe some 3D images where I can fly around. Really helps me be able to start to pick out some of the features. So a combination of everything. I guess I have some commitment problems before I like to start mapping. So the more images for me, the better. So this is the northern polygon in this 3D map. So thanks to Joe for showing me this tool. It was really helpful, and I really like it. And here is the 3D map of the southern polygon. So so the northern polygon is where I started. This is where I've got the georeferenced data from so far. I think Ramon is working on the southern polygon still. So this is where I focused my efforts for now, is this northern polygon. And you can see the zoomed in area is not super great where this alluvial fan is. So I think my method is to just kind of get a rough draft of what's going on. So picking out some of these more obvious geomorphic features, and then maybe zooming into more complicated areas, like maybe this area here in the northernmost polygon, and possibly getting some finer details there where it might be harder to see in this more zoomed out image. So I started roughly mapping some geomorphic features that I saw here, and I was mostly focused on more of this western portion here, where I was able to pick out some nice features, these triangular facets and these wine glass canyons, along with these really nice range front alluvial fans. So I really wasn't sure in this area if I was dealing with a normal fault or a strike slip fault, or maybe a combination of the two, because it is this tensional system. So this normal fault kind of jumped out at me, especially after mapping some of the geomorphic features. So I interpreted this here as some kind of normal faulting system here. But I'm not totally convinced that there isn't some strike slip activity going on, so I definitely have to fine tune and look at some maybe more subtle features, especially in this area here. I didn't really get to look at this in great detail, so that's kind of the next focus area. And then I also started to pick out some just really rough locations of faults based on the geomorphic features. So this darker line here is where I'm pretty confident that there's the fault trace here, and with these dotted lines, I've kind of inferred where I think the fault is going, but I'm not totally sure yet. And just to zoom in on this area, I thought was really interesting, just as a first pass, because I saw these really super subtle lineaments that are kind of trending southeast, northwest. And they look really different depending on which image you're looking at. So I thought it was interesting to toggle back and forth between the hill shade, the slope, and the Google Earth imagery to look at these. I'm not really quite sure what they are.
Have you tried the profile tool to see the?
Yeah, I did try the profile tool. I didn't include it in here. There is some elevation difference around this area here, but if you go south, there isn't quite as obvious offset. So the elevation is kind of subtle here, so they're kind of hard to piece out. I might spend some more time making some more profiles and seeing exactly what's going on here. But the reason I kind of extended the fault up into here is because it's kind of trending in that direction anyway. Again, I'm going to have to spend a lot more time looking maybe at these more subtle or unconsolidated sediment features, because there's not as many obvious features going on up in the north, but I think there's something going on, and that's kind of where I'm going to direct my energy next.
It also looks kind of different, like with the surface, like that surface is like that darker brown kind of material, where the fault is really pronounced down further south is more like bedrocky black kind of.
Yeah, that's another thing I was thinking about doing next is I don't know if this would be super helpful, but maybe mapping out the deposits also, and doing a different map, just looking at where's bedrock, where's maybe some younger features, and maybe that could also help pop out some of these
but
features.
I don't know if this is like a dumb question or not. Do you know if there's like sand around here, like I don't know, any dunes or anything like that?
Well, that's it. So I'm working with Jackie. Well, I'm also on this project with Jackie, and that's something I was going to reference towards the end. It could just be colluvium, because this area, the whole entire area has dunes located around it. So
interesting. Okay.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I have. Yeah, like I said, my next focus is kind of zooming into more of this I guess messier area where I'm not quite sure what's going on, and also tuning into this secondary area where I'm not sure if this is another strand of normal faulting or potentially maybe some strike slip motion. I'm not entirely sure. So
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm going towards next.
Yeah.
Yeah, if any comments or suggestions would be appreciated.
I'd say I think you did an absolutely amazing job. Almost every single point that you made was stuff that I've been having issues with.
Cool.
Specifically, that you could call it a gabbin in between, but that southern point on the northern area we're working on is extremely difficult to interpret, and it's going to take some time. But yeah, I thought it was a wonderful presentation.
Oh, thanks.
Have you thought about doing some of the geomorph mapping up there, where all those, like where the messy fan surface is? Like it looks like kind of east, like southeast-ish from the area that you were saying, like with the little dunes. There's a whole bunch of like fan surfaces, and looks like maybe some abandoned fans, like right in here.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, Joe,
Yeah.
because that's something that I think we should work on, is mapping the different alluvial fans in this area, because it shows a good distinction between the two, the faulting.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
Yeah,
all.
it looks like they've been cut into. So yeah, that's a good point.
It's really cool. Yeah. I like the. I feel like there's like definitely a puzzle to be solved with that, like different surface coloring. You know, that's awesome.
Have you looked at let me see here, like this lineament right here at all?
I haven't, and it popped out to me. I wasn't sure what to make of it. I kind of focused more on the more obvious features
Right. Yeah.
right along in this area here, but there's definitely a lot more to be looked at in this area, and you're definitely right that I think there is something going on there.
I mean, I don't know, just
Yeah.
photolinear. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Looking good though.
Thank you.
I agree. This is very good progress.
Oh, one more question before we move on. Jack, what is your, I guess for everyone else too, what is the scale that you decided to start mapping at? That's something that I've been like kind of not sure about. You know, I mean, I keep zooming in, then I'll zoom out, and I'll zoom in, and I'm like, I don't know where to like kind of rest my scope. You know.
So
Yeah.
well, actually, I'll let her answer.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say that that's also something that I was kind of wondering how to approach, because I'm in the same boat where I like to zoom in and out a lot and kind of map at different scales, and I know that that's not really recommended, so that's also something that I have to work on and kind of stick to a scale. But yeah, that's something I need to develop.
Yeah, because we're supposed to only spend like 4 hours on this, right? So 2 hours geomorph, 2 hours like interpretation fault mapping
per week. I was gonna say, so you should be able to get better than 6-meter resolution from Google Earth.
Is that 1 to 24,000?
I'm not sure, but zoom in, and because there's that measure tool, so you can see how big things are, and you should be able to see like far bigger. You should be able to clearly see like individual bushes.
Okay.
Which would be better than 6 meters.
Okay.
And you get in a little bit more detailed mapping, you probably will want better than 6 meters.
Okay.
And then you need to map at different scales really to see the features. That's okay. And again, you could include some of that information in the metadata. So when you include like what data set you saw that feature on, you could also say the scale where you mapped it.
Cool. Yeah, I felt a little bad giving Ramon like 20 different tiles zooming in on this area, but I think that might need to happen. So I'll work on that next.
Yeah, and if they come slowly, and once you figure out how to do it, then it's easier. So I think right now he's just trying to figure out what is the best scale, and once he figures that out, and you both figure it out together, then
yeah, I've been kind of fearful to send him,
and I can help
because I'm like, I don't want to send you a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not going to even, that I'm not sure if I'm going to use.
Well, a point that Jackie made that's true for us is that, I mean, working at the 10,000 scale is kind of okay, but once you get inwards into 5K, it's really, really blurry. And so we're almost limited to that georeference Google Earth imagery. And unfortunately, Jackie did a lot, but there's still going to be more that needs to be done for some, especially those tighter areas.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure like you are picking the best Google Earth image, because I agree some of them are, especially from 10 years ago, are not great.
Yeah, like I had to take the northern section. The imagery was better. Some of the older Google Earth imagery was better because the newer stuff was blurry in the north, but then the southern imagery was better with the newer imagery. So just make sure you look at a few different time sets for your area and look at the different, because some of that imagery just, I don't know. I just noticed it's not very consistent. So you may want to take different chunks from different times if that's available to you.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm probably going to steal some of your process, Jackie, with how you're mapping, because I feel like we map very similarly. I get like like commitment issues. I like that. That's perfect. I have huge commitment issues with putting lines on anything. So I think I might steal some of your ideas there.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Great, Jackie. Move on. Rachel, do you want to go?
Sure. I'll share my screen. Okay, does everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I had Napa Valley, California, and the earthquake occurred in June 2014, but I'm getting pre-earthquake imagery from Open Topography. And so pretty much my overview is, right now I just have one hillshade at 315 and 45, but I plan on doing more in the future. And then this is kind of just what I have down as of right now. I used hillshade and slope imagery from Open Topography. And I looked at the LiDAR imagery, but because a lot of this is covered in vegetation or any lineations that I'm going to see are probably vineyards, I don't think to use those. So I'm just working off of Open Topo right now. And then I started off just kind of using a polygon to block off the giant active water because it kind of messed up with the resolution a little bit. So I blocked those off so I knew kind of to stay away from those areas. And then
those are water bodies?
Yeah. So I have it, maybe you can see it kind of down here. It looks kind of marshy and swampy. And so that's kind of why I was messing with my resolution a little bit for the DEM. So I just kind of blocked those out so I kind of know what to look for when I have my DEM on. And then it's pretty much characterized by like this complex drainage system in the north and then this kind of flatline marshland in the south with a lot of housing and civilization and roads in the bottom. And then so after I did the water, I kind of started using the slope map to map all the drainages in the north to kind of see if there's any beheaded drainages or any other offset I could see with features. And it was a little complex and a little messy, so I was toggling between the slope and the hillshade. But after that, I started to try to map some faults, and I saw some lineations using the hillshade. And on the left, I think I see a scarp, so I marked it on there. It is a little hard when it's closer to the roads and everything to see if it's like actually what I think it is. And then in the middle, I think this is a beheaded drain, so I marked that down. Because the system is so complex, I feel like a lot of the drainages might be hard to match up because they could also just be runoff drainages from higher elevations. But I can use the slope map, I guess, to figure that out.
What is that triangle right there?
Huh?
One, that little orange triangle.
Oh, that's just like my scarp notation.
Oh, okay. Oh.
And then on the right side, I just kind of have like an overview. I think that they're mostly northwest to southeast trending faults. And I'll probably have more, but these are just the ones I kind of threw down that I saw initially. And then my future mapping, I'll probably concentrate it to this area. And then I'm still a little bit hairy on how to deal with the south because it is mostly water or flatline lands without any distinct lineation. But I think that's something that maybe if I finish the mapping in the north, I can try to maybe draw some of those faults down to see if they're continuous or have any evidence on the same strike at the bottom. But that's pretty much where I'm at.
I have a question early, maybe, anyway. So I think the earthquake was actually in August in 2014.
Oh, okay. I got my wires crossed. The imagery is from June.
Yes.
Okay. Imagery is
you
from
wanted to use some of the imagery. Yeah, the imagery in June is fair game to use.
Okay. Yeah. So I just followed the link under the Google Drive, and so it would have all been from June.
Okay.
So those orange lines, that's gonna be your like drainage, right? That's all like the where the water's flowing.
Yeah, and so I know you can probably see like a lot more all over the place, the little ones, but if I toggle to Google Earth, they kind of look like they've been dried up or they're obscured by bushes. So it's hard for me. I don't want to like put too many where it doesn't serve a purpose. So I'm just trying to mark like the main ones, but I don't know if using offset of drainages will be a huge help for this one because it does seem to be a little bit messy everywhere. Mostly like maybe lineations or that one beheaded drain I had like right there, which is what I'm thinking is a beheaded drain, but could also just be two drainage systems next to each other. That's pretty much it.
It's awesome. So So I mean, I guess the same question. Have you decided kind of on a scale yet?
I think when I'm doing some of the closer stuff, I'm at 10,000. But I've been as close as like 8,000 if I'm trying to really see like if it's a scarp or not or something. But I've been generally between like 10 to 20 for the bigger stuff.
So I guess like question. Oh, thank you. So I guess question to like some of the more experienced mappers in this group as well. Like me, Rachel and I have been like struggling with the holes in her data, like in the southeast a lot, like trying to figure out what to do about it. Does anybody have any experience or advice in getting different data sets whenever there's like just unusable sections?
Why or southeast? Is this in the swamp area?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then like near like the city area as well, there's like huge holes too, like where there's like cityscape. Because I'm guessing that the holes in the swampy area is just like the lidar bouncing off of the water surface then.
Yeah, there's different ways of working with LiDAR in water areas. But yeah, it's typically not as clear as you would see in higher relief landscapes. And so I guess some advice, which I think Rachel's doing, is to try to get rid of the vegetation and the buildings. So seeing your bare earth image, which is, I think what you're seeing, and there's this is an older LiDAR data set, so there's some limitations to it. And if the construction of the building of these towns has really, the farmland has really destroyed the faulting evidence, you in fact may not be able to see it as clearly as in other areas.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So it could be a case where you would put a lower amount of certainty, probably smaller and less well exposed features.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, every time I think I see a lineation, I like turn off my hillshade. I'm like, oh, it's another winery. But I think if I concentrate it like in the north area where there's not as much farmland and there's more evidence of geomorph features, I should be rocking and rolling.
Yeah, it's also, you could start by just mapping the topography, so mapping it as a lineation before interpreting it as a fault.
Mm-hmm.
So focus initially on making the observations before you make your interpretations. And that may kind of make you actually a bit less afraid to do the mapping, and to, once you see all these lineations that you've mapped, maybe something, whether it's faulting or a different feature, will be a little bit more clear or obvious to you.
Okay, sounds good.
And honestly, after everyone's talks today, I'm like, man, I need to do a little bit more geomorph mapping before I definitely get stuck in trying to be like, oh yes, faults everywhere, so.
Well, that's why we had you guys do some of the mapping assignments before, where we did try to slow you down.
It's like you were trying to teach me.
Make these observations before making the interpretations. And then it also helps you if you ask, well, why did you call that a fault? Or why is that not a fault? Then you can really see what geomorphology you mapped, and then ultimately how that led you to the interpretation.
Has anyone been keeping a mapping log, like how Ramon kind of advised it a while back? I've been trying to to keep one, but I've not been policing myself super well on that. Because I like the idea of
questions, but that's about it.
Oh, okay.
I had another quick question, Chelsea. So I know we try to make our coverage of our map somewhat even, And I know there's also going to be cases in areas where there's a lot more going on in one area than the other. And I think that might be kind of the case with mine, where like the northern half is going to have a lot more apparent features than the south because it's mostly marshland. But is like I'm guessing the level of importance I should be putting on mapping.
Yeah, so yeah, I do agree. As I said earlier, it's important to have somewhat even coverage. So even in the flat areas, the swampy areas, just denoting that it's flat is, or the direction of the slope, for example, is much better than just leaving it blank. Just to show that you did look in that area.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Rachel. And Jenna, would you like to present?
Yes. Okay. So I'm definitely gonna say that I'm not as far as I'd like to be, but we're getting there. Okay, is my screen up? Good.
Yes, yeah, press that, great.
Okay. So I have the Fukushima Hamadori earthquake in Japan from 2011. And this one has not a lot of data. I looked around, I tried to find some, but I couldn't. So I just have this DTM provided. So I had to, originally these files were in an ERS format, and that's great for putting it into QGIS. But when I went and started converting the hill shades, it wouldn't take the ERS file, so I had to save them as TIFF files, and it took me a minute to figure out how to do that. So it definitely slowed me down a little bit there, and it was nice to have it georeferenced and put into ARC as well, so thank you for that, Chelsea. So I went ahead and just started creating a whole bunch of slope shades, which I didn't throw in here, but also hill shades from the south and west. And I'm the worst, and I went ahead and I had to lay out the big two faults that were just staring me there in the map. And so that's basically as far as I've gotten. And so soon I plan to start mapping some of the drainages, and I see like there's some farmland over here and some city here and a river that runs up through here. But yeah, so that's where I'm heading today.
Great. Yeah, so this is a digital terrain model, as Jenna said, and the area is quite highly vegetated, and so you really do need to have the digital terrain model, not the digital surface model, if you want to see more than just the trees. And so it ends up being, I think it's do you know what the resolution is, Jenna?
I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
So I was looking at this yesterday. I believe it's 2 meters. So it probably, the LiDAR data was probably acquired at a higher resolution than that. But once they got rid of all the vegetation points, then there was about 1 elevation point per 2 meters.
Is there a difference between DTM models and DEM models?
It's a good question. So DEM is used somewhat, used very generally, and can refer to a DTM or DSM. If you want to be slightly more correct, then it's more appropriate that it's equivalent to a digital terrain model where you removed the surface features such as buildings and trees.
Gotcha.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for Jenna?
those two faults really are pretty like, boom, can't not see them.
Yeah, I just had to start there. And then when I like am mapping everything else, I'll hide them and, you know, act like I can't see them. Like they're not dictating everything else for me, but.
Great.
It probably is a case where
Hello?
Chelsea, I don't think we can hear you.
Yeah, there's like, it's like a weird.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I was saying that with this LiDAR, once you remove the vegetation, seeing these faults, they're pretty clear. But if you are working in the days before LiDAR, for example, from air photos, the areas were covered by trees, then it'd be very similar to Seattle, where it would have been very hard to see, or next to impossible to see these faults. So I'm looking at these maps, you should really just appreciate, in some cases, how much LiDAR makes it easier to see to the landscape and essentially not see the trees.
Did you, I'm sorry, did you discuss your, I had to step away for a moment. Did you discuss your strategy in mapping this area?
Briefly. So like I said, I had to start with the faults. It's just how I do this. So I'll probably just, you know, I don't really have a strategy when it comes to these things. I just kind of start looking and going for it. And I'll start with maybe one geomorph feature that I see super common. So I'll probably start with all the drainages through here, and then see where that goes.
Yeah, I feel like that's about right. Cool.
All right, great. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, everyone, for presenting today. We have a few minutes left in class. If any of the students or other instructors have any questions or comments, otherwise, I'd be happy to end class a few minutes early.
This is Rich. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I had to call in on my phone. I had some internet issues, but I was kind of watching, following along. Yeah, I think everything I've seen so far is great. Everyone's doing a great job so far. Just, I guess, only two comments. One, just think of the main faults kind of sometimes obvious, but be sure to keep thinking about secondary traces and things off of the main fault. And the other thing is topographic data sets, just straight up topo maps. If you get away from the LiDAR and the imagery for a moment, it might be good to just at least look at the topography on topo lines, because that can sometimes point you in the right direction. So most of the work should be done on imagery and LiDAR and stuff, but I'm just saying that the topo sometimes helps a little bit. So I would encourage you to at least take a look and inspect the topography on topo maps as well.
What do you mean by topo maps, like contours or?
Yeah, like contour maps, exactly. Just like old school maps, but sometimes they can highlight, you know, real lineations and things like that, and like subtle like shutter ridges and things. So, you know, in places where there's trees on your imagery, the topo map might help constrain it a little.
I'm pretty sure that you can generate contours in QGIS based on the DEM.
Yeah, you can, and inspecting contours that way is also very helpful. So it's just another view, another data set, you know, that may reveal something.
So talking about those topos, where would I go to find like an old topo, since I'm looking at a little bit of an older data set? I think that might be pretty useful.
Well, the topo maps for Parkfield probably go back, earlier than your time frame. So there's various places to get them. I don't know if Tim might have a insight into the best for California topos to download them, but for Nevada, I just go to the Keck Geospatial Center and I can just download them directly, all the old original topo maps,
You can do that, or you can go, the USGS posts all their archival topo maps, their website too. I think you can usually get to them. It's called their USGS store, so I think it's store.usgs.gov, but they don't charge you for the downloads. You can just search and they'll give you all the historical topos. I mean, the further you go back, the smaller scale topos become more available, but they're useful. You can see a lot of stuff that may have been modified over the years, especially in areas that have been highly developed.
Yeah, I tried to find some on that Earth Explorer, but so yeah, I'll have to check that out. Just their store, huh?
Yeah, these days we map a lot on LiDAR and imagery, and it's the best. But there's things in the topos, like Tim said, that are really useful. And sometimes, like, you might think, oh, on the LiDAR, is this a road or something? And that topo map might just have the road on it. So you can answer some questions that way by just referring back and forth to the older data sets.
I like the idea of looking back to try to kind of eliminate the cities. That's a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
Real quick before we jump off, I wanted to mention I mentioned before about changing the hill shades and how to like do it really quickly to kind of decide how to build it. So all you do is you just you just go into the layer properties, and right up here where it says render type, usually single banded gray is what you get for the TIFF. If you just go to hill shade and apply that, and then you can just kind of change, where your light's coming from, and you can change like the altitude angle and kind of all that stuff. It's just that, and then use these numbers to build your layer. It's literally just render type.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Oh, Lori, before you jump off, I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind if I could steal you at some point this weekend to talk about the area.
Yeah, that's fine.
That'd be great.
I'm around. You can just email me.
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to chat, but we do want that people that are working on the same map don't work too closely, particularly looking at what the other one has mapped beyond these class discussions.
Okay.
Because we expect that the maps are going to look different by the mapper, by different mappers, and capturing these differences is quite important.
Yeah.
So it's okay if you guys are discussing how to georeference the data, for example, or merging your data sets that you'd like to merge so that Aaron and I can go faster. But in the end, we don't really want you talking
to map together, is what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Yeah, academic honesty and all that. All right, sweet. I don't think I have anything else. No, I'm all good.
When you rendered that, was it from a hillshade, or was it from a hillshade that you made from like a DEM?
For what I did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's straight up from the TIFF file from OpenTopo. So this is what it gives you first, is single banded gray. That's what it gives you first, right? And all you do is you just go to render type and you do hillshade, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, so if I Chelsea, do you think because I only downloaded the hill shades and slope maps directly from OpenTopo, well, I guess I could just see if I have the same capability with those.
Yeah, I would try it, and it may be that you need to put in the vertical exaggeration factor.
Okay.
And there should be a number of sites telling you how to set what your vertical exaggeration should be.
Yeah, I think I just have like this, but I can do some recon on vertical exaggeration.
There's also, I mean, if you have a specific question, you can email me. There's also a bunch of videos on YouTube and so forth that also describe different solutions to these problems.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just emphasize just experimenting with different hill shades and different altitudes, different coloring of your data. You see something new every time you do a different rendering. So yeah, just experiment with a few different ones and see if you see different things.
And Rachel, you can also just blast OpenTopo and run a bunch of different hill shades if in the end that's what you need to do.
Yeah, I started like my second round of them yesterday, so I just have to download them to my computer now and then get them displayed.
Okay. All right, great. So thank you, everyone. And as a reminder, on Tuesday, we will be reading an Electa, which I published or put on the website. And Alana, Joe, and Daniel offered to lead the discussion. So everyone else should send your usual summary questions and lasting input or lasting point from the paper to me by 5 on Monday, and I'll then share your summaries and so forth with the presenters.
Awesome, that sounds great.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.